Okay, I've been away for a little while because I've been doing various jobs. I had some furniture work to do, which maybe you'll see a video of that now. And also I had some canvases to sort out, and you might even see a little clip of that just to show that I do actually use this place, this workshop, for actually doing things, not just spouting off about some, my disgust at the modern world and the con that's being, the duplicity that's taking place at the moment. It's so depressing kind of having to join in, having to assimilate, having to change, having to leave all the things that you believed in behind and move into this modern world. And I thought, well, how could you approach the subject, whether or not you should assimilate to the tech acceleration and AI in particular, or whether you should rebel against it, or whether you should reject it. Having posed the question, should we assimilate or should we reject or rebel, I now know that I can't possibly answer that question. How should I answer that? Who am I to say whether you should do A, B or C? But there are some basic principles that might help. Obviously, I just don't think I would ever tell a young person to save themselves, to save their own humanity from this this sort of artificial movement, because it may be a death sentence for them. I don't know. So I'm not going to pretend that I can ever put myself into a young person's shoes. It's easy for me. I'm at the end of my life. I can hold on, or try and hold on, because I'm, as I said, I've been forced to kind of deal with AI. I've had forced to go to AI tech conferences, even the latter part of my work life. They're dragging me into it, kicking and screaming. But the last 3 weeks, while I've been doing the furniture restoration and while I've been producing these large-scale canvases, it's been such a fantastic time not to be involved with it. I just can't tell you how freeing it is. In fact, there was an interview with Hugh Grant recently. Hugh Grant, he's not a particularly fantastic actor, is he? Although he's made a couple of good films. He made a good film with Roman Polanski, the name of which I've forgotten, but look it up, where he kind of almost acted in that one. And his last film, the horror film he made, was also absolutely tremendous. But I don't recommend watching it if you don't like horror films, because it's effing scary. It really is. It's sinister, actually, and sadistic. And he was interviewed, Hugh Grant, and he was talking about the fact that the only time he really feels at peace and free is when he has actually got rid of his phone and put it away, and he does this consciously for days at a time. But anyway, there you go. We all know what it feels like. All I'm saying is that if you do get a chance, if you can fight this sickly addiction, if you can get away from YouTube, which is, objectively speaking, there's really nothing there. The entertainment's fine. The entertainment's great. I watch Matt Armstrong do up Bugattis, as you know, and all sorts of crap, and I love it for the old music. I was just listening to the Soft Machines' third album, and it's called Third, I think. And to be able to find it on YouTube and enjoy that. You couldn't find that album now in a record shop. So the YouTube is a great archive. I'm not dismissing it, but the opinions, my God, it's just such utter noise, and it's all contrary and contradictory and contentious and shocking, because that's the sort of thing that sells. And there are some terrible culprits. People like David Starkey, whose videos are entitled things like, what was the one he did a couple of days ago? It was literally Britain will not exist in 5 years. All right, Britain's gone, and Peter Hitchens does the same thing, and they've been saying this for decades. In fact, the whole idea of end times and Armageddon and the end of the end of the world. It has been a recurring motif for thousands of years. But, it's sad that people are being drawn into this, and people like Jordan Peterson being sort of, duped into believing that somehow these people, any of these people, have got any particular handle on the world. And unfortunately, the world is a very strange place. You're born into this world. You didn't ask to be born, and you've got to kind of get through it from beginning to end. And, if you're feeling lost, no wonder you're looking for some guru, And beforehand, we had the philosophers, and we kind of had religious leaders, and then, but now what, we've got millions of people spouting crap on YouTube, and they have become the kind of new gurus and Joe Rogans of this world. But anyway, so AI, reject, rebel, or assimilate. Before I start, I just want to remind you that Melania has been at it again. Melania has done another major speech at a tech conference where she talks about AI and how it is the place where our dreams can become true. It was so bizarre that, if you're English like me and you grew up with Monty Python, you satire and parody have become just part, and irony have become just part of your makeup, because that's what English humour is all about, and also English kind of anarchistic qualities and rebellion. It's all about lampooning, and honestly, I've never seen anything which could, which doesn't look so clearly like a kind of lampooning of the world as it is today, and yet it is real. And the blurring of these two things, where the Pythonesque, the satirical world, and the real world become as one, that's never happened before, and it's absolutely terrifying if you think about it. I mean, it does mean that, we are living in a complete insane asylum. Probably not your life and the circle you live in. There are bubbles, but if you look at the overall picture and where things are going and how, and the direction, and the political discourse, particularly obviously in America, but elsewhere as well, and these ridiculous wars that are going on, which are all based on men's stories about the world and pride. And hundreds of thousands must die because of these nursery rhyme stroke fairy tales that they tell themselves, things to do with fate and destiny and the origin story, all of it completely made up, all of it completely invented, and yet thousands must die, hundreds of thousands, millions. But there you go. Anyway, so let's get on with the question. Okay, so if we're looking at this question, the first thing we've got to remember is one of the fundamental principles. You do have to, at some point, we don't have to, but it's probably a good idea, particularly if you want to work and you want to earn money and you want to survive and you don't want to end up in the gutter. You do need to live in the world as it really is, to some extent. Now, if you can opt out completely and go and live in a cage and become a hermit, or go and live in a croft in the Shetland Islands or something, then good, fine, okay, go and do that. Unfortunately, if you're trapped like me and the rest of us, then you have to pay lip service to the real world, and the real world, as we know, is changing, and we are now probably halfway through a complete revolution. And so, if you're young and if you don't want to be sidelined, if you don't want to be put out to pasture in your 20s, if you want to function in this world, then I'm afraid you have to obey your primary objective, your primary directive, which is to survive. And if you want to survive, I guess you better play this game. I mean, what choice have you got? But, at the same time, you need to be a bit cynical about the prophets that are selling this now to you. I'm talking about Elon Musk, I'm talking about Peter Thiel and that lot, the MAGA movement, Trump. But Melania, think about it. Why is this woman who can't speak English, who was a model, who made a film about herself recently where all she does is try on hats. Why is she becoming now the spokesman on AI technology? Think about it. Well, it's because, of course, it's completely wrapped up in the political system now. And why? Well, because of two reasons. One, because of money, boring, we all know, follow the money, etc., etc. But more importantly, it's because of this new religion. It's because of this tech religion that's going on. I know Nietzsche said God is dead, but I don't think he realised he was going to get replaced by AI. But there you go. So yeah, be a bit cynical, but I guess you've got no choice but to join it. Every time you kind of dig deep on AI accelerations and also just technology movements, you realise that this is a tidal wave and you're going to get swamped with it. There's an inevitability about it. There's something about man when he invents something, and also when he invents a tool that he can use. We're lazy. We're lazy. We're quite happy to let our brains atrophy. We don't mind. That's the way it will all. In the end, we will all end up just as sort of heads in jars, and just maybe using eye movements in order to, I don't know, direct an app to squeeze food into us. Well, that's what we want. That's what we're going to get. And the other reason to be a little bit cynical before you go absolutely mad is remember that it was only about 15 years ago that the world called out for coders, that if you wanted to be a coder, it was like being the secretary of the 60s. Every woman in the 60s was told, learn how to type, dear, and you'll never be out of work. And that was true. But about 15 years ago, we were told the same thing about coding. Learn how to code and you'll always have a job because of it. And now, of course, all of those hundreds of thousands of people who spent years learning how to code are now finding that AI can do it with a simple prompt. So, I'm not saying it was a waste of their time, because they can use that. Hopefully they can use that skill in some other way, and maybe by making AI code and being able to check it and stuff. But by and large, it was a bit of a con, really. The idea that coding could save you, being able to code, and all these coding schools started. I mean, it was well intentioned. So be very careful before you invest a lot of time on one of these tech skills before it just disappears completely. The whole film business will be out of work soon. The graphic designers and what have you, and the CGI guys, girls. Anyway, so yeah. I wouldn't tell somebody not to assimilate. You must live in the real world. You have to survive. It's your primary directive. But some people might want to actively rebel. And why would they want to rebel? Well, because they want to protect their own humanity. They want to stay human. They don't want to have a virtual girlfriend called Claude or ChatGTP or Copilot. They want an actual person in the world. I'll be lucky finding one these days, but that's what they want. They want to actually use their brain. They want to enjoy the act of thinking and creativity, and they kind of want to save. They don't want to become a transhuman, and that's fair enough. But those people, those of you who want to rebel against it, remember this: that you're going to have to make a terrible sacrifice. Don't expect the wealth of your parents. Nobody can expect the wealth of their parents now, but you know what I mean. There is going to be a sacrifice. You are going to be at war with a far greater power, and there's not much more you can do about it. You can do tiny things. You could kind of, be active politically at the local level, and you could kind of make YouTube videos, I suppose, which kind of try and encourage people in some way to move against this kind of tech acceleration and not to assimilate 100%. But there is a danger. You might feel a stranger in your own land. I've told you how many thousands of times about how bad the situation is now getting in the outside world. As I walk through the park on my way into the city centre, I have told you, until I'm sort of boring you, I know, that often I cycle through and I don't see a single person who isn't staring at their phone, despite whether they've got a dog on a lead, despite whether they've got a baby with a pram. They are on their phone. I know what they're doing. They're looking at it, flicking with a thumb. Now, I don't know. I'm sure it's fascinating, but it means that for you, the world is no longer fascinating. Your child is no longer fascinating. Your dog is no longer fascinating. The animals are no longer fascinating. The plants are no longer fascinating. The clouds moving through the sky is no longer fascinating and cannot compete with what stupid thing is on your phone. So, you're going to feel like a stranger in your own land if you rebel. And by the way, I'm going to do another video actually, because I've noticed another phenomena. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been monitoring kind of phone use in the park, and now I would say we're at total saturation. I think we're at 99%. In fact, there are times when I see somebody who isn't operating their phone as they're walking through the park, on the park pathways, and I actually congratulate them. But that's another story. But I've noticed other people acting very strangely. There is a hint that previously fully functioning people are starting to display signs of psychiatric distress. But I'll leave that, maybe for the next video. And of course, I can't take any video of this actually happening, because that wouldn't be fair on the people and probably not legal either. You'll just have to take my word for what's happening out there. Well, I'm sure you've seen it, all right? So, yeah, you could actively rebel, and you could be, like I kind of promote things which I find nostalgic, because I lament the loss of the old world. I'm not saying it was great. I'm not looking back at it through rose-tinted glasses. But in my kind of heart, I do feel that we have lost something. I know that we've lost something through this digital revolution, and I'll still keep reminiscing about the old days while I can. But there you go. And the thing about assimilation is that you could feel like a sort of frontier person, couldn't you? You could feel that you are a pioneer of transhumanism. And that might not be a frightening proposition for somebody young. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be young and to always have grown up in this digital world. But maybe it's okay. Maybe it's exciting to be a pioneer of transhumanism. Maybe we have moved on to that point of view. I can't move on. Others are going to be like me who will not go down this path. But if you really are in love with your AI chatbot, and like in the film Ex Machina, in a way, or Ex Machina, I should say, if you are happy to kind of ignore the natural world around you, and if you're okay staring at a screen from cradle to grave as a transhumanist pioneer, then fine. Assimilate. The problem is that, for me, a post-human world is not something that I want to live in. If I'm not really happy living in a world where people are shouting into their phones in the store and staring at their phones in the park and bumping into lampposts, or moving into the path of my bike because they're watching, I don't know what, a dog being washed or something, then obviously I'm not going to champion a post-human world, am I? Although it's already here. So what is a post-human world in one sentence? Well, imagine where everything has been monetized and capitalized and politicized to the point where it has intrinsically become worthless. I mean, we're 90% of the way there. So if you reject or rebel against AI and you step away from this post-human drift, if you fight against it, if you detest screens, you hate the life of being an algorithmic respondent, if you refuse to upgrade, then be prepared for social disconnection. Be prepared for cultural isolation. The benefits will be this tremendous mental clarity. But at the same time, what influence are you going to have? None. I mean, look at me. I believe that that culture is turning to steam, and I'm trying to encourage people. I'm not trying to encourage people, but I'm trying to do something in a way which is the antithesis of the normal podcast, which is 6 minutes long and tells you exactly what it's going to be. I just want to ramble, really, because that's what humans do. I don't want to have a script. I don't want to sort of, I certainly don't interrupt these things to start selling you NordVPN or Octopus Energy. But anyway, but you might preserve your humanity. That's what I think. If you take it a step further and you rebel, you could come into conflict with these people. And a lot of these organizations, if you don't play the game, you don't tap in, they have ways of making your life inconvenient at the very least. I mean, you won't know where you end and where the machine begins, but maybe you won't care. You'll rely on AI for your emotional satisfaction. Many people do now already. I mean, hundreds of millions. You won't need a memory. You won't need to make any personal judgments. You know how easy it is already, how millions of people now, even when making a moral judgment, will simply click on their phone, open up Claude or ChatGPT or one of the others, and just say, I'm in a quandary. I don't know whether to do X or Y. But a genuine desire is, if I should live long enough, to actually smash the whole lot up. The phone, the tablet, the TV and the laptop, to actually one day smash them all up with a hammer and go and sit in a chair with a cup of tea or a glass of scotch or whatever I feel like at the time, and never ever go back to it, and at least have some time on this planet where I am not staring at one of those screens and that I am free to hear the trees and the leaves rustle on those trees.